The one thing I want you to take away from this video is support the people that are in your life. If they're doing well and they're trying to do something positive and change for the better, support them, because you never know what that support can do for someone. Growing up as a kid, I never really had support. I really didn't. And I was kind of left to my own, like just to myself to go figure out life. No one really talked to me. No one taught me anything. So everything that I know in my life, I've learned on my own. I learned through my own trials and error. And I was very naive. I was very naive to the world. I didn't really understand consequences. And, growing up as a kid, I didn't really have anyone pushing me to go to school, really. My parents, they ended up getting divorced when I was 10. And I went to go live with my mom. But before the divorce, my parents were together, and my dad, he was very studious. He was all about school this and school that. But the problem was, school was attached to something very negative. My dad used to beat my ass so much because of school. So I always looked at school as something very negative. Education, it made me think of the ass beatings, Math problem wrong. Blah, blah, blah. My dad would just beat the crap out of us, man. I have siblings. I have an older brother. I have a younger brother. And I have a youngest sister. Luckily, my sister never got beat. But the boys, oh yeah, you got the beat down. Sometimes disciplining your kid could go the opposite way. It could really turn negative for the kid. It could have negative consequences. But luckily for me, when I got beat, it turned into something good. It was like a positive thing. It made me understand like there's consequences to stuff. But I fully didn't grasp it because when you make a mistake and no one teaches you about the mistake, they don't explain it, and all you understood was the punishment and you knew what it entailed. That's the only takeaway, was that there's punishment. So that's how I viewed school. I hated school because of that. And I never really was ever really tied down to school. I remember in second grade. No, sorry, first grade. This is how much I didn't like school. I remember first grade, I would ask the teacher to go to the bathroom. And instead of going to the bathroom, what I would do as a kid, I would literally walk around school to kill time. And the teacher would even know. I would literally walk around school trying to kill time until like recess or lunch or something like that. That's how much I hated school. And if my dad had just a conversation with me, getting a little older, and be like, hey, what do you think about school? Maybe I could have been in the trades. Maybe I could have been something, doing something with my hands, as opposed to pushing education, pushing school all the time. I'm not one of the typical Asians that, follow the books, follow the path of education like that, man. That was never in my stars. But we didn't know any better. So growing up, that's how I viewed school, as something very negative. And it made me want to ditch more and more. So eventually my parents, they got a divorce. After they got the divorce, I went to go live with my mom. And that's when all the bad stuff happened, man. That's when I started hanging around with really bad kids. We ditched, we smoked weed, we drank alcohol. We started getting a tattoo gun and started tattooing each other. You gotta keep in mind, we were only like 11, 12 years old at the time I moved to Hawaii, man. So we were just badass kids. And eventually my mom was like, yo, you need to go live with your dad because you're just so bad out here. You need a man to discipline you. So eventually I went to go live with my dad when I was about 15, 14. Yeah, I was in ninth grade, the second semester, when I went to go live with my pops. Came back to LA. And it got even worse from there, man. Oops. When I came back from LA, that's when I met some kids and we started raving. They introduced me to that rave scene. I was raving back in like 98, 99 when EDC was out in the 818 in Selmar at the dam. I was going to Funhouse on Thursdays, sneaking out on a Thursday on a school night to Hollywood to go to Funhouse. And Funhouse was right across the street from Legends. Legends was like a nightclub, hip hop club or something. And I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, I can't wait to get to that club, man. I'm too young now. But yeah, I was a really bad kid, man. Those bad habits that I carried on from Hawaii just carried on back to LA. And I was never about school, man. All I wanted to do was have fun. But here's the thing, no one ever really taught me about school. It was like, yo, you need to go to class, and this is what's gonna happen if you go to school, and maybe you can make something out of yourself. No conversation like that. And when I got back here, that's all I wanted to do was just party, smoke weed, chase girls, do drugs. And I was already doing ecstasy, I was already doing acid. So I was living that party life. I was really living that raver lifestyle, you know? Going to house parties and stuff at such a young age. And I didn't understand school. But no one really taught me either, because they always associated school with just beatdowns, man. So 10th grade comes around. I'm ditching this whole time. And there was this teacher. Her name is Miss Duong. And she was a Vietnamese teacher. She was young. And I was ditching her class like crazy. Like every single day. And she eventually caught up to me one day, and she was just like, hey man, this is probably like the middle of semester. She caught up to me and she was like, hey bro, check it out. You need to start coming to class. If you don't come to class, I'm gonna call home and I'm gonna tell your parents that you have been ditching school. Like, keep in mind, like, my parents didn't know, like, my dad didn't know I was ditching. And when I was living with my dad, I was also living with my grandma in her place. So in the household, it was a really packed house. It was me, my dad, my younger brother. We lived in one room. We shared the same bed. So it was me, my dad, and my little brother on one bed. And then I had my grandma, my other cousin, living in one room. And then I had my uncle, his wife, his two little kids in another room. I had my other uncle and his kid there, my other cousin, my other aunt that just came from Vietnam. Like, it was a packed house. So the teacher was like, yo, check it, man. If you don't come to class, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call home and I'm gonna tell your parents and your people that you've been ditching, man. And don't get it wrong, I know how to speak Vietnamese, so I'll tell them what's up. Oh, she scared me straight. She said, hey, check it, man. This is what I'm gonna do. I won't tell your family anything, but you have to work with me, okay? She said, open house is coming up, okay? Have somebody come to open house, and I'll explain to them that you're failing the class, but I won't explain to them that you've been ditching. I'll just say you have a lot of absences. So I said, okay. She scared me straight. I told my dad, hey man, we have this open house and you need to come. It's gonna help me with my grade. It's gonna boost up my grade. And I was so fearful for my life. When my dad came to go talk to her, she told him what's up. Like, hey, your kid's missing school and all this stuff, and I don't know what's going on. And my dad was like, well, why do you have so many absences? Bro, I had like 40 absences because I missed literally every single classroom that she had. And my dad was like, why? What's going on? Why do you have so many absences? And I made up this quick lie. I was like, oh, you know, the teacher, she closes the door when the bell rings and then she locks it so I can't get into class. And, you know, the class is far from her class, so it takes a while to get to her class. So by the time I get here, she locks the door and I can't get into the classroom. My dad's like, what what's going on? How do you walk so slow that you can't get to her class? You got 10 minutes for one class to the next. Like, what? So that was the excuse. He fell for it, but he knew something else is deeper. But I think he might not have cared. I ended up getting a B in her class. I went from an F in the middle of the semester to end up getting a B. I worked my tail off. I did all the extra credit. I read books. I checked up with her every single day. And that was the first time I actually got support in my life. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. But I knew that I was like, man, this feels good. Like, I was very studious and I had someone keeping me accountable. Literally keeping me accountable to my own word. So that, 10th grade finishes up. I'm going to 11th grade on this high. And I told myself, you know what? I'm going to keep going. I come back to 11th grade. And keep in mind, I already had ditched the whole semester before. And there was a Spanish class. I hated Spanish class because it was nothing but test, remembering words. But I told myself, hey man, you're gonna come to school and you're gonna get perfect attendance because you're already on fire. Keep going, bro. So when Spanish class came around, I tried my darnest to freaking go. And eventually I ended up getting sick, man. I ended up having a fever. I was fatigued. I could barely walk. I could barely focus. And back then I used to have to walk to school. It wasn't the farthest, but it wasn't the closest either. It was roughly about, 8 blocks or something like that. And when I got the fever in 11th grade going to class, I remember sitting in Miss Rodriguez's class just exhausted, just fatigued. But I told myself, I'm going to do this, man. I'm going to freaking get this perfect attendance award. I remember sitting in class for 3 days, so sick because I had this fever. And I was going to make sure I got this perfect attendance. End of the semester, I ended up getting an A in her class. I ended up getting a perfect attendance award. Oh my God. Another dub in my life. I felt so good. Like, I felt amazing, man. But I didn't really understand it. I couldn't comprehend it. Like, I was so naive. I just knew this feeling, yeah, of accomplishment. But I didn't know it. I didn't know accomplishment. I was this very young, dumb Asian kid, to be honest with you. While all the other Asian kids were just studious as hell. And then, of course, you had your gangbangers. And then you had your fobs. But everybody was still going to school except for me. I was a dummy ditching. But when I got that perfect attendance award, oh man, I couldn't wait to get home and show my dad. So I came home from class that day, from school, and I was like, hey Dad, check this out, man. I got a certificate. I got perfect attendance. I showed him the certificate, the award, and he just looked at it and just shrugged. I was like, oh, alright, cool. He didn't even say anything. He just looked at it, shrugged, went back to watching TV. At that point, I didn't understand how deep that was. I didn't understand feelings. I just left his room whatever, okay. I wasn't sad, I wasn't angry. I was just like, alright, whatever. It's literally whatever. But you can only imagine if my dad had showed some emotion and was like, yo, good job, man. Hey, you're doing great. Good work. Imagine how far I would have gotten. And after that semester, I kind of lost that high to just keep pushing because the reward didn't equate. I put in so much work. I still hold it over my head to this day. 3 days straight of having a freaking fever, still walking to school, still showing up for myself. And all I wanted to do was just make my pops proud. And I could even do that, man. Luckily, at the time, I was very naive. You know, kids nowadays, they're very smart, they're very intelligent. And you can only imagine if a kid were to do that now, oof, they would pop off. They'll put it online on Instagram. They'll be telling all their friends, like, hey, my dad, blah, blah, blah. They'll put it on a TikTok video about how sucky their dad is. You know, back then we didn't have technology. We didn't have cell phones. We just had landlines, house phones, and a pager to communicate. That's it, man. 1-800-COLLECT. When you're out and about and you have no coins, make that collect call. You know, after that incident, I lost my drive to keep going. Because I was like, oh, okay, I got this accomplishment. I got it. Nothing else to kind of look forward to. And I kind of went back into my old ways. I ended up going to college. And I remember I had to take the SATs. But the only reason why I had to take I took the SATs because of my cousin. My cousin Ashley, she was my next support system. She was the one that had all the deadlines down. She was very studious, you know. She's one of those Tiffany's, those Asian girls that have all the dates locked down, and she's the one that's going to be successful and help her parents out and takes grandma to the hospital. That's my cuz, and she wanted me to succeed as well. And I remember, like, she actually scheduled my SAT, because if I didn't take my SAT, I never went to college. And I remember I just wanted to party because I had no more drive to go to school. No one sat down and talked to me about it. You know how I ended up going to take my SATs on a Saturday? I went there rolling still off frickin' X. I went to the rave the night before and I forgot all about it. I forgot about the test. Luckily, some of the high school students, we were cool, and they reached out to me like, hey, do you, because you know, you had to pay. They didn't have like digital payments like we do now, but we had to write a check. So I didn't have a check, and my other friends didn't have a check, so they called me and they're like, hey, do you have a check so we can pay for SATs? I was like, no, I don't have a check. Do you have one? They ended up getting me a check. I went to go take the test. But I went to go take the test rolling. Straight, like still off. I was still thizzing off like ecstasy. I put C's all the way down on the test. I didn't care, man. I ended up getting a 720. I had a 2.0 GPA when I graduated high school. And that allowed me to get into college. Just the bare minimum, man. Thanks to my cuz. You know, I tell you this story because, you know, as if I can look back at times and just have a better understanding of life, maybe I would have made different choices in life, and I never, you know, I ended up going to prison. Maybe I never would have went to prison. 'Cause, you know, at the time, like I said, I was very naive. I didn't understand it. I didn't have anyone show me the ropes. I didn't have a big homie. I was my own big homie. We were all kids. We were all the same age, and that's who was looking out for me. Other kids. So I guess the one thing I want you to do in this video, man, is just, if you have anyone in your life, maybe trying to go to school, trying to start a business, even doing social media, support them. Show them the support. Because someone like Miss Duong or my cousin Ashley, they gave me that love, and it propelled me to do something better in my life. But don't just do it once, do it continually. Like, that's the one thing I want you to do today, man. Look around your life, see who's trying to do something great, and push them. But push them in a way where they are receptive to it, because everyone responds differently to different things. You know, me, I respond to very strict, disciplined people that can keep me accountable. And someone else might need something a little bit more passive. But at the end of the day, as long as you're showing up for your peoples, man, I think that's going to be one of the greatest gifts in life that you can ever give someone, because it's priceless. It's something that can never be bought. You're giving them your time and your energy, which you can never put a price on, man. So hopefully you guys stuck around to the end. You guys heard my whole story, because I got so many more. I guess I'll catch you guys in the next video, man. Peace.